Spurs got away with one yesterday against Marseille. I think it is fair to say they got away with one in Højbjerg scoring the winner for Spurs against Marseille last night. They were already through with a draw, to be fair, but obviously they conceded the first goal in that really charged atmosphere in the Stade Velodrome. And for a time, it looked pretty bleak for Spurs, and I was ready to come on here and do a whole video about how elite is Conte. Is he as elite as we think he is? But they got away with it. Maybe we'll have that conversation at the end anyways. But for Spurs, I guess it doesn't matter how you do it. You just got to go there and get the win and qualify. And that goal that Højbjerg scored to win the game at the end was doubly important because obviously they topped the group now. And you look at the prospective opponents for another English team, Liverpool, who finished second, the only English team which I think is going to finish second. And their options are looking like Bayern, Real Madrid, PSG and Porto. So that goal was really important. But I mean, Spurs in this moment are a bit weird, aren't they? They're just a bit patchy. And even yesterday, the goal that got them back into it, the Clement Longley goal, was from another set piece. We saw their last Premier League game against Bournemouth. It was 2 set pieces in that game that got them back into that tie. And they're just really struggling to create lots of open play chances. Conte is obviously famed for playing this 3 at the back formation, but without Dejan Kulusevski and without Richarlison, they essentially just have 9 men behind the ball. It's just Kane and Son, and then you have your midfield 3, and then you have your back 5. And Conte's sides are normally happy to soak up some pressure and then hit teams on the counter-attack, but they're just pretty stodgy. They're just pretty stale at the minute. And I just think that they obviously went into that game with a plan that a draw is enough for us. Let's just keep it tight. Let's just keep it secure. And really, they didn't start playing until Marseille had got the lead. Some of those first half statistics are pretty wild for the number of passes Marseille had, for the number of forward passes that Spurs had. But as I say, they got the job done. Conte obviously wasn't in the dugout. He had to sit in the stands, and like you could just imagine how frayed he must have been at the end of it. He must have been tearing out his fresh hair. But no, good on them, good for him. And to be honest, he was able to stave off some pretty mad statistics in terms of his Champions League record. Like, we obviously think of Conte in this bracket, maybe just below Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. In with people like Thomas Tuchel, even Mauricio Pochettino. Yeah, you got some upcoming people like Julian Nagelsmann. Maybe he's not in that category for obvious reasons. But you look at some of those people and their achievements in Europe, and Conte doesn't really stack up. It just made me think, maybe why? You offset that with the ridiculous things he's been able to do in league campaigns, and that is why he is considered one of the best managers of his generation. I think rightly so. But it is, I think, just interesting to look at some of his Champions League campaigns to date. So this year is his, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is his 6th Champions League campaign. His first was with Juve in 2012-2013. They lost in the quarterfinals to the eventual champions Bayern Munich. No real shame in that. That season, Juve went unbeaten. They had a league campaign where they went unbeaten. The next season, they got the most ever points in the Serie A season, I think 102. But that season, 13-14, Juve went out in the group stages, finished behind Real Madrid and Galatasaray, but did get to the Europa League semi-final. That was a bit of a trend for Conte's group stage exits. He leaves Juve after 3 years, goes to Italy for a bit. Next club job was at Chelsea. His next crack at the Champions League was 17-18. They lost in the round of 16 to Ernesto Valverde's Barcelona, who lost to Roma in the season where Liverpool meet Real Madrid in the final, and it's the Karius final. No real, I guess, shame in that. But considering the quality of that Barcelona team, I guess it is a disappointing one. Conte, of course, with Chelsea, wins the league in his first full season. Next stab at the Champions League was Inter Milan 2019-20. Group stage exit again, behind Borussia Dortmund and Barcelona. But like some years prior. They go one better in the Europa League, they get to the final, and then 2020, 2021, they again exit at the group stage, this time finishing behind Real Madrid, Gladbach and Shakhtar. So a defeat in yesterday's game would have been Conte's fourth group stage exit in 6 Champions League campaigns. As it turns out, he's staved that off. But still, the furthest he's ever got is a quarterfinal stage. I mean, even Mauricio Pochettino's got to a final. Tuchel's obviously won the Champions League. Klopp, Guardiola have won Champions Leagues. Some of the bigger managers around the world have managed to get to the latter stages of the competition. It's just interesting to think why Conte has never really done that. And you would think that his style is pretty set up to accommodate to mitigate the randomness of knockout football. I think his style is quite, obviously, culturally quite Italian, but also is a style adopted by a lot of international managers facing knockout ties. So again, that is interesting. But we'll see whether we can get any further. Spurs have a really big game this weekend against Liverpool. Two sides who aren't scoring a lot of goals from open play. So we probably can expect that to be a shootout for corners and free kicks, that kind of stuff.